Reborn under the midnight thorn. Forward. The cold ash of the execution pyre still clung to Leora's bones when her consciousness snapped back to life. 300 years of torment, betrayal, and brutal death had seared themselves into every fragment of her soul. She was the last thorn witch of the Blackthorn Coven, framed for a massacre she never committed, burned alive by the vampire clan she once called allies. Lucian Voss, the pureblood vampire prince she had loved blindly, had stood silent as the flames devoured her, trading her life for peace between his bloodline and human hunters. Jealous vampire noble Ilara had woven false evidence to seal her fate, and Elder Valerius had cast the final judgment without a single chance for her to defend herself. When Leora's eyes fluttered open, she was no longer a broken woman waiting for fire. She was 16 again, standing in the crumbling mural studio of Blackthorn Hollow's abandoned chapel, the day before she first crossed paths with Lucian Voss. Her old wounds were gone, her magic untainted by the execution's curse, and every bitter memory of her violent end lingered sharp and vivid in her mind. This time, she would not fall for Lucian's cold softness. She would not trust the vampire clan. She would unravel Ilara's schemes before they began, rewrite the deadly ancient blood oath, and protect the fragile mortal and witch communities the vampires planned to sacrifice for their own eternal power. But fate twisted cruelly. Lucian's crimson eyes found her once more, drawn to her quiet warmth just as he had in her first life. The soul-burning curse that bound him to ruin if he loved a mortal or witch stirred awake early, his immortal soul already aching for a girl who swore to hate him forever. A second chance did not erase the quiet, unshakable love buried deep beneath Leora's rage, and the two doomed souls would face old enemies, new sacrifices, and a choice between vengeance and redemption all over again. Chapter 1. The Ash of a Burned Witch. The fire's heat had been unending, a white-hot agony that melted her thorn magic and seared her skin to raw black flesh. Leora had screamed Lucian's name through blistered lips, begging him to see the lies Ilara had planted, to recognize the fake blood runes forged to frame her for slaughtering 20 vampire infants. He had stood atop the cliff altar, his black wool coat billowing in the ocean wind, his scarlet eyes empty of the tenderness he'd once reserved only for her. Elder Valerius's cold voice had boomed over the crowd of vampire warriors, sentencing her to eternal ash for treason against the thousand-year blood oath. Ilara had stood beside Lucian, silver hair glowing beneath the full moon, a faint, triumphant smile hidden behind her gloved hands. A witch has no place beside a pureblood prince, she whispered loud enough for Leora to hear over the crackle of burning wood. Your love was always a curse to him. Now it ends. Then the flames had swallowed her whole, and the world dissolved into blinding, endless pain. Leora gasped awake, choking on dust instead of smoke, her palms scraping against rough stone wall covered in faded medieval murals. The sharp, burning agony of the pyre vanished in an instant, replaced by the faint ache of calloused fingers from mixing pigment and restoring cracked paint. She scrambled backward, tripping over a wooden ladder, and crashed onto a pile of linen rags stained with crimson flower dye. Sunlight filtered through cracked chapel-stained glass, casting streaks of gold and violet across the empty stone chamber. The air smelled of dried moss, old paint, and wild blackthorn blossoms not charred bone and ash. Her hands were young, smooth, free of burn scars. Her thorn witch mark, a tiny black vine curling around her wrist, was faint and unharmed, the magic thrumming gently beneath her skin instead of broken and dead. She lifted a shard of broken mirror leaning against the wall, and her breath caught in her throat. The girl staring back was 16, chestnut hair loose over her shoulders, soft cheeks free of the hollow grief that had marked her face in her 20s, the face Lucian had watched burn 3 centuries prior. This was the day before she traveled up the misty hill to Voss Castle, the day before her first meeting with the vampire prince that had unraveled her entire life. Rebirth. She had returned to the starting line of every tragedy that had destroyed her. 300 years of memories crashed over her in a brutal wave, The quiet midnight meetings with Lucian in the cottage at the foot of Blackthorn Hill, the slow burn of his soul curse as he fell for her, Illyria's illusion magic that tricked her into abandoning him, the clan's execution order, the full moon ritual that had almost broken the blood oath before Illyria's sabotage, the final betrayal that sent her to the pyre. Every soft, loving moment she once cherished now stung like a blade twisted into her heart. Lucian had chosen his clan, his royal title, and Illyria's empty loyalty over her. He let her die alone, screaming for mercy he refused to give. A cold, bitter resolve settled heavy in Liara's chest. This second life would be nothing like the first. She would avoid Voss Castle entirely, never speak to Lucian Voss, and stay far away from the vampire clan's tangled politics. She would expose Illyria's manipulative schemes before the noble vampire could plant false evidence against her. She would master her thorn witch magic to shield the human tongue of Blackthorn Hollow from the vampire's hidden exploitation of mortal life force, a secret the clan had buried for centuries. No more blind love, no more sacrifice for a man who would abandon her when danger came. She pushed herself to her feet, brushing dust from her worn wool restoration dress, and gathered her leather satchel filled with paintbrushes, pigment vials, and sketchbooks. The chapel mural commission was small, a forgotten wall painting depicting the fountain of the vampire blood of the same mural that had revealed the curse-breaking sacrifice loophole in her past life. She would finish the work quickly, then leave Blackthorn Hollow for a distant human village far from the misty hills ruled by Voss Castle. Before she could step through the chapel's oak doorway, a faint, cold aura brushed against her skin, the distinct icy hum of pure-blood vampire magic she knew all too well. Liara froze, her fingers tightening around the thorn dagger hidden in her satchel, her thorn magic flaring faintly around her wrists in defense. She planned to avoid him for at least another 24 hours, but fate had already intervened. A tall shadow filled the chapel's arched entrance, silhouetted against the grey mist rolling down the hill. Lucian Voss stood there, his black coat draped over his shoulders, dark hair falling over his pale forehead, his crimson eyes glinting faintly in the dim chapel light. He had come to the chapel seeking the mural restorer hired by the town council just as he had in her first lifetime. His gaze swept over her small, young frame, and a flicker of quiet curiosity crossed his perfect, cold features. In this moment, he felt nothing more than distant mild interest, no soul burn, no desperate longing, no hidden love weighing down his immortal soul. The curse had not yet woken, his heart was still frozen, untouched by her warmth. For Liara, seeing him again was a knife to the chest. She remembered the way he held her on the castle hall floor when she fell from the ladder, the soft midnight kisses beneath the full moon, the quiet promises he'd broken without hesitation at her execution. Every gentle memory curdled into rage. She turned her face away, refusing to meet his scarlet eyes, and gripped her satchel tighter to hide her shaking hands. "You are the mural restorer." Lucian's low, magnetic voice echoed through the empty chapel, carrying the ancient faint accent that had once made her heart race. "The town council sent word you would repair the old mural here." Liara did not lift her head, her tone flat and cold, stripped of the shy warmth she'd spoken with in her first life. I will finish the work by sundown tomorrow. I have no business with anyone from the hilltop castle." Lucian's brows lifted slightly, surprised by her sharp distance. Every human he'd met fled from his aura or trembled in fear. Those who dared stay near him clung to his attention, desperate for his protection. This young girl faced him without terror, without curiosity, only quiet rejection. The faint, dormant curse buried deep in his immortal soul stirred, a tiny flicker of heat he could not name. He had never felt such a pull toward a stranger before. "The castle holds more ancient murals in need of restoration," he said, taking one slow step forward, his boots silent against the stone floor. "I will pay double your commission to work there after you finish this chapel piece." Liara finally turned to face him, her dark eyes sharp and unyielding, No trace of the soft fondness he'd grown used to sensing from mortals around him. I decline. I have no interest in entering Voss Castle, or speaking with you any longer. She stepped past his tall frame, moving toward the chapel door, fully intending to walk away and cut their connection off before it could bloom into the doomed love that had gotten her killed 300 years prior. Lucian reached out instinctively, his cold fingers brushing her wrist to stop her movement. The second his skin touched hers, a sharp, burning pain flared in his chest. The soul curse ignited early, a warning fire searing his veins for the very first time in 300 years of immortality. He pulled his hand back instantly, shock flooding his crimson eyes. The oath's punishment only activated when a vampire fell in love with a mortal or witch. He had barely spoken to this girl, yet the curse already burned inside him. It was an impossible anomaly, one he could not explain with any clan knowledge or ancient manuscript he'd studied. Leora felt the faint magic spike between them, and a bitter laugh caught in her throat. Even in her second life, the curse bound them together the moment their skin touched. Fate would not let her escape him easily. She wrenched her wrist free of his lingering gaze and stepped out into the misty chapel courtyard, leaving Lucian standing alone in the shadowed mural chamber, confused and already suffering the first twinges of the soul burn that would slowly erode his immortal form. As she walked down the winding mountain path toward the small cottage she rented at the hollow's edge, Leora's mind raced with plans. She could not avoid Lucian forever, not when the curse reacted to their slightest contact. But she would not repeat the mistakes of her past. She would watch Ilara's movements closely, track the vampire clan's hidden exploitation of mortal life force, and master her thorn magic to defend herself against every betrayal waiting on the horizon. If Lucian's heart still softened toward her, she would harden hers beyond repair. Vengeance, not love, would guide every choice she made this time around. Chapter R. Ilara's premeditated schemes. By dusk, Leora finished retouching the chapel's faded blood oath mural, carefully copying the hidden ancient runes carved beneath the main painting into her leather sketchbook. In her first life, she'd ignored the script until Lucian's soul burn grew life-threatening. This time, she studied every line of the old blood language, memorizing the sacrifice loophole that could break the 1,000-year curse before the clan's death sentence was ever issued. The runes detailed the equal exchange, half a vampire's immortal power traded for 10 years of a mortal or witch's lifespan, an offering to the night and sea spirits to erase the soul-burning punishment. She locked the chapel's oak door behind her and followed the misty forest trail back to her cottage, her thorn magic thrumming faintly as she sensed a foreign vampire aura lingering near the wooden fence. Ilara. The silver-haired noble had tracked her down within hours of her meeting with Lucian, already plotting to drive her away before the prince could grow attached to the thorn witch. Leora slowed her steps, gripping the thorn dagger tucked inside her dress pocket, and rounded the oak tree bordering her cottage yard. Ilara stood beneath the branches, draped in her signature black velvet gown threaded with silver silk, her pale face cold with unmasked jealousy, her crimson eyes sharp as shards of broken glass. She had not expected Leora to return so soon, and for a split second, the noble vampire's mask of posed elegance slipped, revealing the bitter rage hidden beneath. You dare to draw Lucian's attention. Ilara hissed, gliding forward soundlessly over the mossy grass, no footprints left in her wake. A low-born thorn witch with no royal blood, no power worthy of a pure-blood prince. You will ruin his immortal life before you even understand the clan's ancient rules. Leora tilted her chin upward, unafraid of the elder vampire's shadow magic curling faintly around her gloved palms. In her past life, she'd been naive, shocked by Ilara's cruelty, tricked by her midnight illusions into abandoning Lucian and running from Blackfern Hollow. This time, she knew every trick the noble would deploy, every lie she would weave to frame Leora for unforgivable crimes against the clan. I have no desire for Lucian's attention, Leora replied evenly, her thorn vines curling subtly around her wrists as a silent threat. I turned down his offer to restore the castle murals. I plan to leave this hollow within days. You have no reason to waste your energy threatening me. Elara let out a cold, mocking laugh, flicking a strand of silver hair over her shoulder. The blood oath's curse stirred the moment he touched you. I felt the faint burn rippling through his aura from miles away. Your very existence poisons his eternal soul. Even if you run, he will seek you out. I cannot allow a fleeting wish to drain his life force for a meaningless, doomed love. She lifted one pale hand, swirling a thin stream of shadow mist between her fingers, the same illusion magic that had tormented Leora in her first lifetime, showing her visions of Lucian burning to ash atop the cliff altar. I will show you the future you bring him. You will watch his flesh turn transparent, his magic fade to nothing, until he dissolves into midnight ash because of your selfish affection. Leave him voluntarily, or I will force you to witness that fate 100 times over in your dreams. Leora's thorn magic flared bright black, tiny sharp vines shooting from her palms to wrap around Elara's shadow mist and snuff it out before the illusion could fully form. The noble vampire's eyes widened in shock. Thorn witch magic was the only power capable of countering her shadow illusions, and she had underestimated the young girl's control over her gifts. I have already seen that future, Leora said, her voice low and sharp, carrying the weight of 300 years of burnt agony. I watched him stand by and let me burn for crimes your lies created. I had no intention of loving him, no intention of clinging to a man who sacrifices me to preserve his clan's peace. Save your illusions for someone who fears them. I will not be manipulated into running away this time. Elara's lips pressed into a thin, furious line, her shadow magic surging stronger in response to Leora's defiance. You think you can outwit me? I have waited 300 years to stand beside Lucian as his vampire queen. No witch, no mortal, no fleeting stranger will steal that future from me. If you refuse to disappear quietly, I will plant evidence linking your thorn magic to the slaughter of the clan's infant vampires, just as I did in lifetimes past. Elder Valerius will sentence you to the pyre before the next full moon rises. The threat hung heavy in the misty evening air, identical to the trap Elara had laid in Leora's first life. This time, Leora had advance warning, and she smiled faintly, a cold, bitter curve of her lips. I know exactly how you forged the fake blood runes to frame thorn witches. I have copied the chapel's oath script, and I will show the clan council proof of your manipulation before you can plant your false evidence. Your schemes will backfire before you even begin. Elara's rage boiled over, her fangs extending slightly as she stepped forward to strike, but the faint sound of distant footprints on the forest trail froze her movement. Lucian's cold vampire aura drew near, and the noble vampire quickly smoothed her furious expression back into soft, elegant composure, wiping the shadow mist from her palms to hide her hostile magic. She turned to face the approaching prince, her tone shifting to gentle, worried sweetness, a stark contrast to the venom she'd spoken to Leora seconds prior. Lucian, Elara purred, gliding to his side and resting a gloved hand lightly on his arm. I came to warn this young restorer of the castle's dangers, to urge her not to accept your mural commission. Thorn witches carry volatile magic that could worsen the ancient curse binding your bloodline. Lucian's crimson eyes flicked past Elara to lock onto Leora standing by the cottage fence, the faint burning pain in his chest growing sharper the longer he stared at her. He sensed the tension hanging thick between the two women, the faint trace of shadow magic lingering in the air, and he understood Elara had confronted the thorn witch with threats. His heart twisted, a strange protective instinct he could not explain rising unbidden within him, despite only speaking to Leora once earlier that day. There is no need for warnings, Lucian said quietly, pulling his arm gently free of Elara's touch. The girl already declined my offer to work in the castle. She intends to leave Blackthorn Hollow soon. Elara's fake smile faltered, jealousy stabbing at her chest as she watched Lucian's gaze drift back to Leora, softening almost imperceptibly. The prince had never spared such quiet attention for any mortal or witch before, not even after 300 years of her loyal companionship. She curtsied stiffly, making a hasty excuse about clan duties, and vanished into the thick forest mist, leaving Lucian and Liara alone in the cottage yard beneath the grey twilight sky. Silence stretched between them for a long moment, the only sound the soft rustle of blackthorn leaves in the evening wind. Lucian took a slow step toward her, the soul burn flaring brighter with every inch of distance closed between their bodies. Ilara's words hold no weight, he said, his voice quiet, tinged with faint remorse for the noble vampire's aggression. She has long clung to old clan traditions, and fears any outsider who might distract me from my royal duties. Do not let her threats drive you from the hollow if you wish to stay. Liara crossed her arms over her chest, her thorn vines still faintly coiled around her wrists as a barrier between them. I do not fear her. I simply have no wish to interact with your clan, or you. Whatever strange pull you feel toward me is only the blood oath's curse stirring early. It will bring ruin to both of us if we indulge it. Lucian's crimson eyes darkened, confused by her foreknowledge of the soul burn. No human or witch had ever understood the curse's inner workings without decades of studying clan manuscripts locked away in Voss Castle's library. How do you know of the oath's punishment? The soul burn is a secret only pure-blood vampires and elder council members are taught. Liara hesitated, caught between revealing her rebirth and hiding the truth to avoid further entanglement. She could not tell him she'd lived 300 years of tragedy, that she'd watched him abandon her to a fiery death in a past lifetime. He would dismiss her as delusional, or grow obsessed with unraveling her impossible secret, binding them closer together than she could bear. She settled on a half-truth, nodding toward the chapel on the hill. The hidden runes beneath the mural detailed the oath's origins and punishments. I translated fragments of the old blood script while restoring the wall painting today. Lucian's shock deepened. The forgotten loophole and curse details carved into the chapel stone had been overlooked by every clan elder for centuries, dismissed as meaningless graffiti. If a 16-year-old thorn witch had deciphered the script in a single afternoon, her intelligence and magical intuition far outmatched any mortal he'd ever encountered. The burning pain in his chest intensified, a desperate longing swelling in his immortal heart he could not suppress. I will speak with you of those runes, he said, his tone gentle, no trace of his usual cold royal distance. No other living soul understands the lost language of the founding spirits. Meet me at the chapel at midnight tomorrow, and I will share the clan's ancient manuscripts to help you fully decode the sacrifice ritual written in the stone. Liara's first instinct was to refuse, to shut him out entirely and cut off their growing connection. But the runes held the key to breaking the blood oath's curse, and if she understood the ritual fully before Ilara could frame her and trigger the clan's execution order, she could avoid the pyre entirely. Reluctantly, she nodded once, her expression hard and unyielding. I will come only to study the runes. Do not mistake my curiosity for affection. I will not fall for you, not this time. Lucian did not fully grasp the hidden weight behind her final words, the quiet grief buried beneath her cold tone. He only registered her agreement to meet him again, and the soul burn in his chest softened to a faint, bearable throb, a strange sense of quiet hope settling over his 300 years of lonely darkness. He dipped his head in a silent farewell and vanished into the misty forest, leaving Liara alone to stare at the fading twilight, dreading the midnight meeting that would draw her back into the tangled vampire fate she'd sworn to escape. Chapter 3, Midnight Secrets and Dormant Longing. The midnight mist blanketed Blackthorn Hollow thick as wool, swallowing the hilltop chapel in soft grey shadow when Liara arrived, her leather sketchbook tucked tight beneath her arm. She carried a small vial of thorn blossom oil, a magical substance that masked her witch aura from vampire bat scouts patrolling the treetops, ensuring Ilara's spies could not track her meeting with Lucian. Her thorn magic hummed quietly beneath her skin, Ready to defend her against any trick or betrayal the prince might hide behind his gentle words. The chapel's oak door stood slightly ajar, faint silver moonlight spilling through the crack to mark Lucian's waiting presence inside. Leora pushed the door open slowly, stepping into the cold mural chamber to find the pureblood vampire standing beside the faded-off wall. A stack of crumbling leather manuscripts balanced in his pale arms, ancient clan texts bound with dried crimson seaflower vines. He had laid out beeswax candles along the stone floor, casting soft golden light over the carved runes beneath the mural, illuminating every faded line of the founding spirit's script. He turned to face her as she entered, his scarlet eyes softening at the sight of her figure framed in midnight mist, the soul burn flaring faint and warm in his chest at their proximity. He set the manuscripts down on a wooden stone table beside the wall, gesturing for her to step closer and examine the ancient texts spread open before them. These manuscripts date back to the clan's founding, 1,000 years prior, Lucian explained, his low voice quiet against the empty chapel's echoing stone walls. They contain full translations of the lost blood runes you found carved beneath the mural, detailing the sacrifice ritual required to lift the soul-burning curse. No elder has dared study the loophole, convinced the spirits would punish any vampire who sought to undo the oath's judgment. Leora stepped forward slowly, keeping a careful distance between their bodies as she leaned over the table to scan the yellowed manuscript pages, cross-referencing the text with the sketches she'd drawn in her notebook. Every word matched the knowledge she'd gained in her first lifetime, confirming the equal sacrifice exchange, half the vampire's immortal power traded for 10 years of a witch or mortal's lifespan, offered beneath a full moon atop the ocean cliff ritual altar. She traced a finger along the line detailing the spirit's judgment, her voice quiet and hollow as she spoke. The ritual works only if both participants offer their sacrifice willingly. If one person acts out of fear or obligation, the spirits will reject the offering, and the curse will grow twice as severe, burning the vampire's soul to ash within days. Lucian's gaze locked onto her face, stunned by her flawless understanding of the ritual's fine print details buried deep in the manuscripts he'd spent centuries reading, alone. You speak as if you have witnessed this ritual unfold before. How can you know the spirit's rules without completing the translation? Leora froze, caught off guard by his sharp observation, and quickly pulled her hand back from the manuscript pages, stepping away from the table to create space between them. She could not admit her rebirth, the 300 years of death and rebirth that gave her foreknowledge of every clan's secret and cursed ritual. She crafted a careful lie, her tone steady to hide her nervousness. My thorn magic connects me to the night spirits, she said, twisting a strand of chestnut hair over her shoulder. They whisper fragments of ancient knowledge to me in dreams, visions of the oath's creation and the hidden sacrifice loophole. I only pieced the full truth together after seeing the chapel's carved runes today. Lucian accepted the explanation, unaware of the vast, unspoken truth she hid behind her witch magic excuse. Thorn witches held faint spiritual ties to the night spirits, and prophetic dreams were not unheard of within their coven. He reached out to brush a stray smudge of pigment from her cheek, his cold fingertips barely grazing her skin before he pulled back abruptly, wincing as the soul burn exploded into a sharp, scorching pain in his chest. The curse's reaction grew stronger every time their skin touched, a clear sign his immortal soul was already growing attached to her despite their short acquaintance. Leora flinched away from his brief touch, her thorn vines snapping upward to wrap around her wrists as a defensive barrier. Do not touch me. Every contact fuels the oath's punishment, dooming your soul to slow annihilation. If you continue to seek my company, you will fade to ash before the year ends. Lucian's crimson eyes filled with quiet, unspoken sorrow, a grief Leora recognized all too well from her first lifetime, the quiet agony of knowing loving her meant inevitable destruction, yet being unable to stay away. I have lived 300 empty years without warmth or light. Even if this curse burns my soul to nothing, every moment spent beside you is worth the pain. I cannot force myself to stay apart from you, no matter how hard I try. His words mirrored the quiet confession he'd spoken beneath the rainy cottage roof 3 centuries prior, the promise that had lured her into blind love and eventual death. Leora's heart ached, a faint, buried affection stirring beneath her thick layer of rage and grief, the leftover love from her first love refusing to fade completely despite the memory of his betrayal at the execution pyre. She hardened her expression, pushing the soft emotion down deep inside her where it could not weaken her resolve. You will choose your clan and your royal title when the time comes, she said sharply, her voice tight with suppressed pain. When Ilara plants false evidence to frame me for the infant vampire massacre, when Elder Valerius issues the death sentence, you will stand silent atop the cliff altar and watch me burn, just as you were always meant to do. Your words of devotion mean nothing when your clan's demands outweigh my life. Lucian's face paled further, confused and hurt by her brutal prediction of his future actions. He had never considered abandoning anyone to execution, least of all the thorn witch who had unwittingly woken the only warmth his immortal soul had ever known. I would never let harm come to you, no matter what the clan demands. I would defy every elder, break every clan law, sacrifice my royal birthright to protect you. Leora let out a bitter, hollow laugh, turning her back to him to stare at the faded mural covering the chapel wall. You said the exact same words 300 years ago. Your promises dissolve the second the clan's wrath forces you to choose between me and your eternal vampire legacy. I will not trust them again. The confusion in Lucian's eyes deepened, unable to parse her reference to 3 centuries past. Before he could press her for an explanation, a faint rustle of blackthorn bushes echoed outside the chapel windows, the cold, familiar aura of Ilara drifting close to the stone walls. The noble vampire had tracked them to the midnight meeting, ready to eavesdrop on their conversation and gather new ammunition to drive Leora out of Blackthorn Hollow. Leora's thorn magic spiked instantly, tiny black vines creeping up her forearms, ready to counter Ilara's shadow illusion magic if the noble dared to interrupt their midnight study session. Lucian's gaze shifted to the cracked stained glass window, sensing Ilara's hidden presence lurking in the misty yard beyond the chapel doors. He stepped forward to stand beside Leora, positioning his tall frame as a silent protective barrier between her and the hidden eavesdropper outside, his crimson eyes hardening with quiet anger at Ilara's constant, invasive surveillance. Ilara will not interrupt us tonight, Lucian said lowly, his voice carrying faint royal vampire authority that rippled outward in a cold magical wave, pushing Ilara's aura back from the chapel walls. I will not allow her to manipulate or threaten you any longer. If she continues her schemes against you, I will report her unprovoked hostility to Elder Valerius and the clan council, stripping her of her noble vampire title for abusing shadow magic to harm innocent witches. Leora glanced sideways at him, surprised by his immediate defense of her, a faint flicker of doubt flickering in her mind. Could things truly unfold differently this time? Would Lucian stand firmly against his clan and Ilara's jealousy instead of surrendering her to the execution pyre when conflict arrived? She pushed the fleeting hope away, clinging to the memory of burning ash and his silent, empty gaze atop the cliff altar 300 years prior. Past betrayal could not be erased by a single midnight promise of protection. Your threats to Ilara will only make her schemes more vicious, Leora replied, turning back to the stack of ancient manuscripts spread across the stone table. She will rush to plant the fake blood runes framing me for the infant slaughter before the full moon arrives, desperate to eliminate me before the sacrifice ritual can break the oath's curse. Lucian leaned over the table beside her, their shoulders barely an inch apart, the soul burn throbbing hot and steady in his chest at their close proximity. He pointed to a passage in the crumbling manuscript detailing the properties of fake blood runes forged from thorn witch blood, explaining the subtle magical flaw that separated Ilara's counterfeit evidence from genuine witch magic traces. The council elders can distinguish forged runes from authentic thorn witch magic with a simple moonlight ritual, he told her quietly. If we gather Ilara's shadow magic residue from the cottage yard where she confronted you yesterday, we can present proof of her forgery to the clan before she submits her false accusations. Her plot to frame you will collapse entirely before Elder Valerius can issue a death sentence. Leora's eyes widened, a genuine spark of hope igniting inside her chest. In her first lifetime, no one had uncovered Ilara's forged evidence until after Leora had already been condemned to the pyre. This second chance allowed them to expose the noble vampire's lies before the clan judgment ever began. If they collected Ilara's magic traces and presented the manuscript proof of counterfeit runes to the council, the execution order would never be issued, and the pyre fate waiting for her 300 years prior could be avoided entirely. For the first time since waking Reborn in the chapel, Leora allowed herself to imagine a future free of burning ash and clan betrayal, a life where she and Lucian completed the full moon sacrifice ritual to break the Blood Oath's curse, escaping the 1,000-year punishment that had doomed their love in her past lifetime. The faint, buried affection she carried for him across 3 centuries of death stirred stronger in her heart, harder to suppress beneath her wall of rage and distrust. She lifted her head to meet his crimson eyes, the midnight candlelight softening his cold, immortal features, erasing the memory of his empty gaze atop the execution cliff. If we expose Ilara's forgery before the council, we will still need to complete the Ocean Cliff sacrifice ritual to lift the soul-burn curse weighing on you. The clan will not accept our cross-species love until the spirits rewrite the oath's judgment. Lucian's cold fingers brushed gently against hers atop the manuscript pages, the burning pain in his chest dulling into a faint, bearable warmth instead of searing agony, as if the spirits themselves softened the curse's punishment when they worked together toward the sacrifice ritual. I will stand beside you through every step of the process. We will gather Ilara's shadow magic residue tomorrow at dawn, present our proof to the clan council within 3 days, and wait for the full moon to perform the equal sacrifice atop the Ocean Cliff altar. No clan threat, no jealous rival, no ancient oath will separate us this time. Leora did not pull her hand away from his cold touch, letting their fingers rest intertwined over the yellowed ancient manuscripts, the midnight mist swirling around the chapel walls to wrap their quiet, forbidden bond in soft gray shadow. For the first time in 300 years, she dared to believe fate might rewrite their tragic ending if they fought side by side, instead of letting betrayal tear them apart before the full moon's ritual could save them both. Chapter 4, Dawn Evidence and Clan Council Confrontation. Dawn painted the misty Blackthorn Hollow Hills in pale silver and soft pink as Leora and Lucian slipped out of the chapel before the rising sunlight could burn the vampire prince's weakened, curse-affected skin. They carried a small crystal vial enchanted to capture traces of shadow magic, a tool Lucian retrieved from Voss Castle's hidden magical storage chamber after their midnight manuscript study session. Their destination was the wooden cottage fence where Ilara had confronted Leora the previous evening, the ground still saturated with the noble vampire's dark magic residue left behind during their hostile argument. Lucian wrapped a thick black velvet cloak around his shoulders to shield his pale skin from the faint golden dawnlight filtering through the treetops, his frame already faintly transparent at the wrists from the soul burn that had intensified overnight after his midnight contact with Leora. Every quiet moment spent beside the thorn which eroded his immortal power little by little, the curse's slow decay visible on his skin with every passing day, but he did not regret a single second of their time together, even as the scorching internal pain grew harder to bear. Leora knelt beside the mossy oak tree where Ilara had stood threatening her, twisting her thorn witch magic to draw the faint black shadow mist clinging to the grass and thorny bush branches into the crystal vial, held in Lucian's palm. The glass container glowed faint gray as Ilara's magic residue trapped inside, solid proof of the noble vampire's hostile shadow spells used to threaten and manipulate the thorn witch. Once presented to the clan council elders alongside the manuscript proof of forged blood runes, Ilara's plot to frame Leora for infant vampire slaughter would crumble completely. As Leora sealed the crystal vial with the thorn blossom wax stopper, Lucian's cold hand rested lightly on her shoulder, his crimson eyes soft with quiet gratitude. Without your foreknowledge of Ilara's schemes, we would never have gathered this evidence before she submits her false accusations to Elder Valerius. You have saved both our lives before the clan's judgment can begin. Leora glanced upward at him, her chest tight with conflicting emotion, relief that their plan to avoid the pyre was falling into place, and lingering fear that history would repeat itself, that Lucian would abandon her to the clan's wrath when Ilara's lies reached the council's ears. Do not speak as if victory is certain. Ilara has 300 years of trust from the Elder Council, while I am only a foreign thorn witch with no clan allies to defend my name. Her word will carry far more weight than our magical evidence, unless we present every scrap of proof together before the full council assembly. Lucian nodded, his jaw set with unshakable resolve, his royal vampire authority rising to the surface as he spoke. As the last pureblood vampire prince, my testimony holds equal weight to Elder Valerius's judgment. I will stand beside you before the council, recite every detail of Ilara's threats and eavesdropping, and present the crystal vial and ancient manuscripts as tangible proof of her forgery plot. The elders cannot dismiss evidence witnessed and validated by their royal heir. They returned to Leora's cottage before the sun climbed higher over the hilltops, Lucian retreating into the shadowed cottage cellar to avoid direct sunlight while Leora sorted their collected evidence into a leather satchel, organizing the manuscript pages, crystal magic vial, and her sketchbook of chapel rune translations for the upcoming clan council meeting scheduled 3 evenings later. The 3-day deadline mirrored the timeline of her first lifetime's clan ultimatum, yet this time, they held solid proof to dismantle Ilara's false charges before the death sentence could be issued. Over the next 2 days, Leora and Lucian spent every midnight hour together in the chapel mural chamber, cross-referencing the ancient manuscript text to build an airtight argument to present to the Vampire Council. Lucian taught her the old blood language spoken by the clan elders during official judgment assemblies, ensuring she could defend herself verbally without relying solely on his royal testimony. Leora shared her thorn witch magic's ability to counter forged rune spells, demonstrating the power to the prince so he could explain the magical discrepancy to the council members who lacked thorn magic knowledge. Ilara's presence lingered constantly in the surrounding misty forest, her silver-haired silhouette spotted lingering at the edge of the trillium every midnight, watching the chapel's candlelight burn through the cracked stained glass windows as she plotted to sabotage their council presentation. She attempted to slip a fake thorn witch blood vial into Leora's cottage storage one evening, hoping to plant additional false evidence before the council meeting, but Lucian's vampire senses detected her hidden aura and intercepted the counterfeit vial before she could hide it among Leora's pigment supplies. The prince locked the fake blood sample away in a sealed iron box to add to their stack of proof against Ilara's manipulation. The evening of the clan council assembly arrived, thick gray storm clouds rolling in from the distant ocean to block the sunset's golden light, creating safe shadow travel conditions for Lucian to escort Leora to the hidden mountain fortress where the vampire elders held their judgment hearings. The fortress stood carved into the jagged Blackthorn mountain peak miles from the hollow, its stone walls lined with ancient vampire tapestries depicting the thousand-year blood oath's founding legends. Dozens of black-robed vampire warriors lined the stone hallways leading to the council chamber, their faint crimson eyes scanning Leora's thorn witch mark with quiet suspicion as she walked beside Lucian's tall royal frame. Elder Valerius sat atop a raised stone throne at the front of the council chamber, his ancient face lined with stern, unforgiving wrinkles, already holding a stack of parchment scrolls Ilara had submitted detailing her fabricated accusations against Leora, complete with forged blood rune samples laid out on a stone table beside his throne. When he spotted Lucian entering the chamber with the thorn witch at his side, the elder's expression darkened with cold disappointment, fully expecting the prince to abandon the mortal witch and side with Ilara's clan loyalty as he had in Liara's past lifetime. Lucian was, Valerius boomed, his voice echoing across the silent council hall, every vampire warrior and noble present turning their full attention to the royal heir. You bring the thorn witch accused of slaying our infant clan members before the council, even after Ilara submitted irrefutable magical evidence of her treason. Have you forgotten your duty as our last pureblood prince, bound to uphold the 1,000-year blood oath's sacred rules? Ilara stepped forward from the line of noble vampires beside the throne, her black velvet gown flowing silently over the stone floor, a smug, triumphant smile tugging at her pale lips as she glanced at Liara standing beside Lucian. She believed her forged evidence would seal the thorn witch's fate to the execution pyre before the night ended, clearing the path for her royal marriage to Lucian once the witch was eliminated. Elder Valerius, the witch's volatile thorn magic matches the traces left at the infant massacre site, Ilara purred, gesturing toward the fake blood rune scrolls spread across the elder's stone table. Her dangerous magic threatens the entire clan's safety, and she has bewitched Prince Lucian with false affection to distract him from his royal obligations. I beg the council to sentence her to eternal ash atop the cliff altar before the next full moon rises. Liara's fingers tightened around the leather satchel holding their proof, her thorn magic thrumming steady beneath her skin to calm her nerves as she prepared to counter Ilara's lies. Before she could step forward to present their evidence, Lucian moved in front of her, his tall frame shielding her from the council's hostile stares, his crimson eyes sharp and unyielding as he addressed Elder Valerius directly, his royal voice carrying authority that silenced every murmur sweeping through the chamber. Ilara's evidence is forged, manipulated by her shadow magic to frame an innocent thorn witch for crimes she never committed, Lucian declared, pulling the crystal vial of shadow magic residue, iron box holding the fake thorn blood sample, and stack of ancient manuscripts from Liara's satchel, laying each piece of proof out on the stone floor before the elder's throne. This crystal vial captures Ilara's shadow magic, used to threaten Liara and weave illusions to drive her from Blackthorn Hollow. This iron box contains a counterfeit thorn blood vial she attempted to plant in Liara's cottage to manufacture additional false evidence. The 1,000-year manuscripts detailed the flaw in forged blood runes. Traces of shadow magic taint every fake sample Ilara submitted to your council scrolls. Valerius's cold gaze scanned each piece of evidence spread across the stone floor, his ancient vampire eyes examining the crystal vial's trapped shadow mist and the fake thorn blood sample locked inside the iron box. He summoned 3 elder council mages to inspect Ilara's forged rune scrolls, who quickly confirmed the faint shadow magic contamination woven into every line of the supposed thorn witch evidence, proving Ilara had manufactured the entire accusation from thin air to eliminate her romantic rival. A wave of stunned silence rippled through the council chamber, every vampire noble and warrior turning their shocked stares toward Ilara, whose smug triumphant smile crumbled into panic and rage as her fabricated plot collapsed before the entire clan assembly. She attempted to summon her shadow magic to destroy the crystal vial and manuscript evidence, but Lucian's pureblood royal aura surged outward, freezing her magic mid-summon to stop her sabotage before it could begin. Your 300 years of loyal service to the clan do not excuse your treacherous manipulation of council judgment, Valerius said coldly, staring down at Ilara's trembling pale frame, his disappointment heavy in every word. You have wasted council time, manufactured false treason charges against an innocent witch, and abused your noble shadow magic to threaten outsiders living within our hollow's borders. As punishment, your noble title is revoked, and you are confined to the mountain fortress's remote western tower until the clan council votes on your permanent exile. 2 vampire warriors stepped forward to escort the screaming, furious Ilara out of the council chamber, her silver hair whipping wildly as she shouted threats at Liara and Lucian, vowing to sabotage their full moon sacrifice ritual atop the ocean cliff before the night of the offering arrived. Once Ilara's figure vanished through the stone hallways, Elder Valerius turned his solemn gaze back to Lucian and Leora standing side by side before the throne, his stern expression softening into weary resignation as he referenced the ancient manuscript's hidden sacrifice loophole. The founding spirit's forgotten ritual loophole cannot be ignored, Valerius admitted slowly, gesturing toward the crumbling thousand-year manuscripts laid out on the stone floor. If you two complete the equal mutual sacrifice beneath the full moon atop the ocean cliff altar, lifting the soul-burning curse binding Lucian's immortal soul, the clan council will officially erase the blood oath's punishment for cross-species love from our ancient laws. Until the ritual's success is witnessed, however, the clan cannot fully accept your forbidden bond between vampire and thorn witch. Lucian nodded once in quiet respect toward the elder, his cold fingers intertwining gently with Leora's warm palm beside him, the soul burn flaring faint and soft at their touch instead of the usual searing agony. We will travel to the ocean cliff at midnight on the full moon, complete the spirit's sacrifice offering, and return to the fortress to present proof of the curse's lifting to the entire council assembly. Once the oath's punishment is broken, we ask the clan to leave Blackthorn Hollow's human and witch communities in peace, free of exploitation and unprovoked persecution. Valerius agreed to their terms with a solemn bow of his ancient head, dismissing the council assembly and granting Lucian and Leora safe passage back to the misty Hollow Hills without clan pursuit or surveillance. As they walked hand in hand through the fortress's shadowed stone hallways toward the forest trail leading back to Leora's cottage, the weight of impending execution lifted from Leora's chest for the first time since she'd woken reborn in the chapel 3 days prior. The dire fate waiting for her in her first lifetime had been fully avoided, thanks to the foreknowledge her rebirth granted her and Lucian's unwavering loyalty in standing beside her against the clan's false accusations. The faint, buried love she carried for the vampire prince across 300 years of death and grief bloomed fully in her heart as they stepped out into the misty forest twilight, no longer hidden beneath layers of rage and distrust. This second chance at life had rewritten every tragic chapter of her past, and the full moon sacrifice ritual atop the ocean cliff would seal their new fate free of the soulburn curse, free of Ilara's jealous schemes, free to love openly without the threat of clan execution hanging over their heads. Chapter 5, Full Moon Sacrifice and Rewritten Fate. The 2 days between the clan council assembly and the full moon passed in quiet, careful preparation for the ocean cliff sacrifice ritual. Leora harvested crushed crimson sea flowers from the hollow's coastal tide pools to trace the required spirit runes onto the cliff's stone altar, while Lucian retrieved the silver moon ceremonial dagger forged from starlight silver, the only blade capable of drawing balanced vampire and witch blood for the spirit's mutual offering. They packed a small leather satchel with dried wild thorn blossoms, spring water, and the ancient manuscript pages detailing the ritual's incantations, preparing to travel to the remote cliff peak at dusk to avoid Ilara's last-minute sabotage attempts from her fortress tower confinement. As dusk fell over Blackthorn Hollow, thick silver mist rolled in from the ocean to blanket the winding forest trail leading toward the coastal cliffs, concealing their movement from any stray vampire scouts Ilara might have convinced to sneak out of the fortress tower to intercept their ritual. Lucian's soul burn had worsened noticeably over the past 48 hours, his skin growing faintly transparent around his neck and wrists, his immortal strength fading with every hour spent beside Leora as the curse's slow decay advanced unimpeded toward his soul. He leaned heavily on her arm as they trekked through the thorny blackthorn bushes lining the coastal path, enduring constant scorching internal pain without a single complaint, unwilling to slow their journey to the ritual altar beneath the rising full moon. When they reached the cliff's flat stone platform overlooking the crashing ocean waves, the full moon crested the jagged rock peaks, casting bright silver light over the carved ancient altar at the cliff's center. Leora knelt beside the stone surface, spreading crushed crimson sea flower petals across the rock to trace the spirit runes required to summon the night and sea spirits, her thorn magic weaving faint black vine patterns over the symbols to strengthen the ritual's magical pull. Lucian stood guard beside the cliff's forest trail, his crimson eyes scanning the thick mist for any trace of Illyria's shadow magic, ready to intercept the revolt noble vampire if she escaped her tar confinement to sabotage their sacrifice offering. For 20 minutes, the cliff remained quiet, only the soft crash of ocean waves echoing through the misty coastal air, no sign of Illyria's interfering aura anywhere in the surrounding forest. Lucian returned to Liara's side beside the rune-marked altar, pulling the silver moon dagger from his coat pocket and setting it flat at the center of the carved stone surface, his cold gaze softening as he stared down at the thorn witch who had risked everything to stand beside him through clan betrayal, jealous rivals, and the soul-burning curse threatening his immortal existence. Before we begin the sacrifice, I must confirm you understand the price you will pay, Lucian said quietly, his voice heavy with solemn remorse at the cost the ritual demanded of her. You will surrender 10 years of your mortal thorn witch lifespan to balance the half of my immortal power I offer the spirits. This trait cannot be reversed once the blood offering blends into the runes, shortening your natural life permanently with no way to reclaim the lost years. If you wish to abandon the ritual now, I will accept the curse's slow annihilation alone rather than force you to sacrifice your time for my sake. Leora lifted her chin, her dark eyes bright with unshakable devotion, no trace of hesitation or regret in her worn features as she met his scarlet gaze beneath the glowing full moon. In her first lifetime, she had watched him burn to ash because no sacrifice loophole had been uncovered in time. This second rebirth gave her the chance to save him, and 10 years of her mortal life was a trivial price to pay for an eternity of unburdened love beside him. I choose this sacrifice willingly, she replied, resting her warm palm lightly over his cold hand atop the stone altar. 10 years of my life means nothing compared to a future free of the soul-burn curse, free of clan execution threats, free to love you without the fear of watching you fade to ash before my eyes. Every remaining year I live beside you will outweigh the decade I surrender to the night and sea spirits. Lucian's crimson eyes glistened with quiet, immortal emotion, a tear of faint silver vampire blood sliding down his pale cheek the first time he had shed a tear in 300 years of lonely immortality. He lifted the silver moon dagger from the altar, pressing its sharp edge gently to the palm of his transparent left hand, drawing a thin stream of glowing crimson vampire blood that he pressed into the largest central rune carved into the stone surface, whispering the ancient blood language incantation to summon the founding spirits to witness their mutual offering. He handed the ceremonial dagger to Liara, his cold fingers steadying her grip on the blade as she pressed the sharp metal to the soft flesh of her right palm, drawing a stream of warm red thorn witch blood that blended seamlessly with his vampire blood within the carved rune's grooves. The second their mixed blood touched the stone altar, a swirling vortex of silver and deep crimson magical light erupted upward from the cliff platform, twisting high into the midnight sky to wrap around the luminous full moon hanging over the ocean waves. A low, resonant hum echoed across the entire misty coastline, the faint, ancient voices of the night and sea spirits speaking in old blood language only Lucian's immortal vampire ears could fully translate. The spirits accept your equal mutual sacrifice, Lucian whispered, his voice trembling with quiet awe as the scorching soul burn inside his chest faded instantly, the endless searing pain that had tormented him for days vanishing completely from his veins. Half my remaining immortal power is surrendered to balance the 10 years of your lifespan offered freely. The 1,000-year blood oath's soul-burning curse is fully erased, rewritten by the spirit's judgment to allow cross-species love between vampires, witches, and mortals without punishment of slow annihilation. Leora gasped in quiet wonder as she watched the transparent smoky haze clinging to Lucian's skin fade away entirely, his pale flesh regaining its solid, a marred vampire complexion, the faint dimness of his crimson eyes brightening back to their original warm scarlet glow. The weakness that had plagued his every movement vanished, his tall frame steady and powerful beside her once more, freed from the slow decay the ancient oath had forced upon him for loving a thorn witch. The endless weight of fear and grief she carried across 300 years of rebirth lifted from her chest, leaving only pure, unburdened joy beneath the silver full moon atop the coastal cliff altar. Before they could embrace to celebrate the broken curse, faint shadow magic rippled through the misty forest trail leading up to the cliff peak, Ilara's cold, furious aura surging close to the ritual platform. The revoked noble vampire had slipped past her fortress tower guards, summoning a swirling vortex of dark shadow mist in her palm to blast the blood-marked rune altar and erase the spirit's completed sacrifice, before the curse could be permanently lifted. She sprinted out from the blackthorn tree, her silver hair whipping wildly in the ocean wind, her crimson eyes blazing with unbridled jealousy and rage as she charged toward the stone altar to destroy the ritual's magical foundation. Lucian stepped instantly between Ilara and the rune-carved stone surface, summoning his fully restored pure-blood royal magic to form a glowing silver barrier blocking her shadow mist from touching the altar's blood-stained runes. The soul-burn curse's removal had returned his full immortal strength, and his magical aura overwhelmed Ilara's weaker noble shadow power in an instant, freezing her dark vortex mid-summon before it could unleash destruction on the spirit's offering site. Your schemes end here, Lucian said lowly, his royal vampire authority echoing across the cliff's coastal air, the silver magical barrier trapping Ilara in place so she could not advance toward Liara or the ritual altar. The spirits have rewritten the thousand-year blood oath's rules, and your jealousy cannot undo their judgment. Any further attempt to sabotage our sacrifice or harm Liara will result in permanent exile from the clan's mountain fortress, with no chance of future reinstatement. Ilara struggled against the silver magical barrier, tears of bitter grief spilling down her pale cheeks as she realized her 300 years of waiting for Lucian's royal hand had been rendered meaningless by the spirit's curse-breaking ritual. The prince's love for the thorn which could no longer be punished by soul annihilation, and no amount of illusion magic, forged evidence, or sabotage could separate them now that the ancient oath's deadly punishment had been erased forever. She stared one final bitter glance at Liara standing safe beside Lucian atop the rune-marked altar, then dissolved her shadow magic and turned to walk back down the forest trail into the thick midnight mist, abandoning her last attempt to tear the two lovers apart. With Ilara's threatening aura fading into the distant tree, Lucian dismissed the silver magical barrier and pulled Liara into his strong, steady arms, spinning her gently in a slow, joyful circle beneath the glowing full moon flooding the cliff's stone ritual platform. No more soul burn, no slow fading to ash, no clan death threats, no jealous rivals plotting to frame her for uncommitted crimes. Every tragedy that had destroyed their love in Liara's first lifetime had been erased by her rebirth and their mutual sacrifice offering to the night and sea spirits. Liara wrapped both arms tight around his neck, pressing countless soft, grateful kisses to his cold pale cheeks and jawline, happy tears streaming down her warm cheeks as she buried her face in the crook of his neck, breathing in his familiar midnight mist scent without the constant fear of watching him fade away to ash before her eyes. The 300 years of burning agony, betrayal, and lonely death she endured in her past life felt distant and irrelevant now, replaced by a quiet, endless future stretching out before them beneath the silver ocean moon. We are free, Liara whispered against his cold lips, her voice thick with overwhelming joy and relief. This second chance at life has rewritten every tragic fate the blood oath laid out for us. No more hidden midnight meetings, no secret sacrifices, no clan persecution to tear us apart. Lucian cupped her warm face in his cold palms, pressing a deep, tender kiss to her lips beneath the full moon atop the remote coastal cliff, the ocean wind sweeping their hair together in the damp misty night air. The crash of distant waves the only silent witness to their reborn, unshackled forbidden love. We will return to Blackthorn Hollow's cottage tomorrow, Lucian promised her quietly, his crimson eyes soft with endless devotion as he stared down at the thorn witch who had sacrificed 10 years of her lifespan to save his immortal soul and rewrite the clan's 1000-year destiny. You may finish restoring the Hollow's ancient murals at your own pace. And once your work is complete, we will travel across the misty European countryside together, visiting forgotten chapels and crumbling Gothic castles for you to repair, wandering hand in hand through midnight forests without a single curse or threat to separate us. For every remaining year of your mortal form rich life, I will walk beside you, experiencing every human season and quiet joy you wish to share. When your mortal years draw to a natural end decades from now, I will hold every warm memory of our rebirth and sacrifice close in my immortal heart, waiting patiently for whatever fate the night spirits have laid out for my eternal life after you. Leora leaned her forehead gently against his, their breaths mingling in the cool coastal midnight air, the blood-marked rune altar glowing faint silver behind them as proof of the spirit's rewritten blood oath. Rebirth had granted her vengeance against the fate that burned her alive 3 centuries prior, but it had also gifted her something far more precious, unending, unburdened love with the vampire prince who had chosen her over his clan, his royal title, and his empty immortal solitude, twice across 2 separate lifetimes. Hand in hand, they walked down the cliff's rocky forest trail back toward their small wooden cottage at the foot of Blackfern Hill, the bright full moon lighting their quiet path home, their future stretching endless and bright, filled with quiet midnight evenings, shared art restoration days, and an eternal crimson love that would never again be threatened by an ancient oath's cruel, deadly curse. The cycle of tragedy had been broken, rewritten by a thorn witch's rebirth, a vampire prince's unyielding devotion, and a mutual sacrifice that changed the fate of every cross-species lover bound to the 1,000-year blood oath.